Всем привет, и рад, что вы все к нам присоединились на очень интересный доклад.
Hello everyone, it's great that you joined us for this interesting report, this different presentation, and here you can ask the questions, and you will need to think about the questions you want to ask, and stay in the queue, and one by one you'll be asking the questions, and for the best question, our publishing house will give you a great book, and on the 24th of May, tomorrow, there will be a cool party in a lace hall where will be a great networking opportunity. So now let's get to the point, why we're here. So Alexei will tell us about Log4Shell. That's very interesting, so let's give him a hand. Hello everyone. So we're beginning. Nikita, the floor is yours. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. Hello everyone. Thank you for finding time for our presentation. For me and as Alexander Popov, it's just great to be here in the hall under the name Popov. My teacher in college had the same name, had the same last name. My name is Nikita, and as many developers, I love open source, but in open source, not everything is smooth, and there are certain problems. Alexei went a bit farther. He decided to talk about these problems to the public, and thus we work on the platform scoring. So we are the people who are concerned about open source security and the analysis that we have there. And last year I was talking about it, and this thing is called megagraph. So we are concerned about the security of open source. So what we do, we build and resolve all the vulnerabilities of open source and the interdependencies of it, and how one vulnerability can hit some adjacent package that depends on the package that was compromised. So what we do, so we work on those dependencies. We know what part of the ecosystem is affected by a vulnerability that was discovered. So we're not going to be talking about this one, it's just a reference. We can say just one thing, what percentage of ecosystem of Java was affected by working shelf and how you can get it. We can say how deep some vulnerability is on the side of the subscriber and how it can get to you on the directory level or transitive level, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and so on. And then you can see how quickly the community responds to the identified issues. And also using megagraph, you need to understand what vulnerabilities or packages are the most used ones, and in order to improve scorings within the product. Last year, we spoke about Log4Shell vulnerability. We're not going to give you anything new on that. We just told you that using megagraph, we managed to evaluate how affected the ecosystem of Java package is. Each 20th package was affected by Log4Shell vulnerability through transitive dependencies, and it was quite dangerous. And we looked at the dynamics and how over life cycle other packages change, and given that Log4Shell library they can find in their vulnerabilities. And the dynamics showed us that in the first months, people got concerned about Log4Shell, and they kind of didn't care about it anymore and started releasing packages that were not dependent on Log4Shell anymore. So it's great to understand the influence of vulnerabilities on the ecosystem. So that's what we live with. And you know what's great? It's to take this product to certification. That's a sudden transition here, and we decided to do it last year. Certification, I think we needed more to make process healthier inside rather than for the documents that are applied at the end of it. So what we did, we decided to certify it. And certification includes assembling it from the source, when even packages seem to be like third-party packages, but you assemble them from scratch. The analysis of known vulnerabilities, then static analysis, and you do it not only your code, but you run it the third-party codes as well. This is running dynamics, fuzzing, including looking for secrets and other practices. So it's all clear, and all the points are clear. And we know that yesterday Nikita was kind of wandering around some of the living zone, so to speak, and he said that the speakers don't have dynamics. And so Nikita will tell you about dynamics and how we edit it. So we'll talk about fuzzing. First of all, you need to choose a tool. We have great connections with the Institute of System Programming. That's why we took Cedar for fuzzing. And I went to Novgorod city, and we tried to work with co-scoring using Nage. There is an article on Hubber. There are lots of technical nuances there. So, talking about Cider, the main advantage of it is that it's hybrid and allows you to get deeper into the app and fuzzing. So what do we fuzz? And here is the scheme. And I hope we have three main components. And this is agent Johnny. You put in a pipeline, it interacts with the user, and with this, the user tries to identify problems in the images, in vulnerabilities and dependencies. Then there is always code scoring, and you can set up certain policies, blocking, non-blocking, and they work with each other. And there is a main storage is in our zone that we monitor all the time. But today we'll work with Johnny only, with this agent, and we'll look at how to approach it. In order to do fuzzing, you need to isolate its parts. So to avoid network queries, if there are going to be some crashes, you need to find this place, and the information you get actually helps you a lot with this. Besides isolated assemblies, there are manifests, kind of log files, JSON, and when the agent works, it binds with the name of file. As part of fuzzing, you don't need that. In this case, I did this run in such a way that fuzzer finds the parser that they use, so you can choose it. And also, the one who does fuzzing, I gave him the option to choose a scenario. So I don't think what scenario will be used with what parameters, because there are many configurations for that. And you need to be able to control them manually. And if you 10, 12 binaries, then you can't really follow it. Here on the scheme in the table, you can see the results of running it together with Cider, and the comparison between the standard and the previous fuzzer. And here the integration of fuzzer and Cider. This is what we achieved. We achieved such numbers that not quite achievable before. Now we cover more than 80%, sometimes 90, 95, and for that you need less than a week.
После того, как фазер отработал, я не видел,
After Fuzzer did it, I haven't seen a project
пройти фазинг-тестирование без каких-либо проблем.
that could go through fuzzing without any problems.
Ну, не стал исключением.
And in this case, Johnny is not an exception. It found such a nice AML file.
Который разобрал.
You can remember it. And this is what Johnny did.
Как всегда, со спецэффектами.
It falls apart usually like with all the special effects.
Проблема была в...
And the real problem was in the dependency in the library.
Я подготовил после того, как я нашел POC.
After I found POC,
После того, как все развалилось.
after everything fell apart,
Маленький пример, на котором это разваливается.
I made a small example where it's fallen apart, and I immediately reported it.
Наша история.
And since this moment, our story begins. So what was the main problem, though?
Она была связана с тем, что
The problem was that they didn't follow the contract.
применяется возврат ошибок. И
And oftentimes they had this return of errors.
паника. То есть,
And at this point, they panicked.
чтобы просто вернуть ошибку и все обработать.
And instead of returning the errors and process the whole thing.
Начали эту тему разматывать, потому что
But then we began to unfold this
это сентябрь,
theme. It was September
какое-то такое странное время.
2024, and it was a strange time, and we were doing all these things with this secure development. And when Nikita comes to us, to our chat, that was about secure development, and he said, so this thing crashed, and it crashed beautifully. And we just realized that the situation is not easy, because on that date, my daughter was born, and I was like, so we definitely need to look into it. And he said, well, start digging. And the guy started digging, and this one happened. Nikita fuzzed the story that affected the third-party library. So we managed to do it in our revision. But we are responsible guys. Well, Nikita is actually a very responsible dude. So we fixed it like this, and you can see the whole thing. It's fixed very simply. You just need to do it in your YAMLs. So we just don't show certain things here. So then, this is what we had. Next day, we made a decision that we open up the problem to the authors of GoYAML. So you can see the link. The presentation will be available, so you will look at it. And this is what happened next. The library of GoYAML is used in Cybernet, and they use their own fork. And 3 days later, developers, they saw that in the project there is a problem. They checked it. It crashes. So they decided to pay attention to the situation, to look at it. Since it's patched on our side, everybody who is curious about the situation, we told them about it. So that story kind of went to the background. People were doing their own thing. We were doing our own thing. Then in the previous version, we found a similar problem of 2022. And at that point, we had a thought that it would be possible to actually report about it. We thought that it's a reportable issue, and it seemed like, okay, tell us about it. And when we get to the next repo, when we had the fork, and on the 28th of December, the local dude, one of those who were concerned about this, and he said, who is dealing with all those issues? Well, there is a real Natasha with a number of... He asked her, everybody kind of laughed at it, and actually didn't go any further than that. 2 weeks passed, and all of a sudden, we had patch forkers. So in fact, if you call for Natasha, if you get Natasha, so everybody works. So we found a patch, and it was great.
Как-то все не просто так. Дальше
But then the whole thing wasn't that simple.
что, вливается патч.
Да, помните,
So what we do, we
всему можно
put the patch.
Это
So and remember that you can't believe everything you find on internet.
как появился патч,
Now, after we got the patch,
сидела вот идея о том, чтобы заявить о новой уязвимости.
then there was an idea to report about a new vulnerability. But when you talk about the vulnerability, it's not good if you don't find a fix for it. So you announced the patch.
Ну, мы думали, куда заявить.
So we thought where we're going to report it to, and we looked at the response of the community and what people were thinking about it, and we
Кому нам?
thought, why not to gain some experience, and who are we? So Nikita, actually, not. So
Качественные фиды.
we need to develop domestic
Никита подал,
FDs,
подал
and
БДУ в стек.
Nikita applied to Vedusta,
Оперативно отработали, то есть
and they worked with this very operatively, less than 3 weeks.
и у нас практически
They worked with this, and we had it on stack.
случился get
And if you waited a bit more, we could have had get, because the number of the vulnerability
и можно прям реально
02344, and you can actually remember it.
айтишник, получили новый опыт.
So there was an ID, so we got new experience. It's great.
Она есть, она
And now we know about it. We know it exists. They even wrote about it as if it's not us.
половиной, типа это high. То есть
And X score is 7.5. It's pretty high. It's the situation with CVE.
но по CVE
We write it all, but not exactly. Well, we would have waited the CVE ranking for 6 months, and you've heard about it. But it turned out it was very quickly with this one.
что дальше?
Okay, go on.
После того, как был получен идентификатор российский,
After we got Russian ID for the vulnerability, we got a whole number
мировой,
of submissions to get
через
an international ID through G-Hub. We went to HackerOne,
по итогу получилось,
and as a result,
ребята пометили данное письмо как информационное.
so those guys, they marked this letter as an informational letter, and it didn't go any further.
Между собой все общаются, и
But I think that people talk to each other, and the
состояние
original project went to archive,
патча не будет.
so
Здесь такой еще
we won't have a
момент,
patch.
что, ну, достаточно классический, но как бы
It's a classical point,
для меня немножко
but
неожиданно.
with HackerOne,
Туда пришел, красиво
is quite unexpected for me. Nikita came there, he said to them, hey guys, listen, this is what we have, and they said, okay, fine, prove it.
доказывает. То есть на самом деле здесь
He decided to prove it, and in fact,
немножко умолчено по докладу,
maybe
но
here in the presentation it's not shown globally, but we did a huge work
проблематику с POC.
to resolve this problem with the POC.
Проект GoYAML закрыли, начал развиваться форк.
We closed the GoYAML project, and we started developing another one.
История про поиск того, через что сделать POC.
But the story, how to make the POC through what, it's pretty interesting too. And we changed the whole story with Megagraph, and we used the component that is used by GoYAML, and we tried to find a nice project that could be hacked. But
слайд для фотографирования, то есть это вот этот пол.
so this is called slide for
Все посмотрите.
taking picture. So but you'll get it. So you'll see how the vulnerability lives in the open source. So in September we discovered it, and we're still talking about it. But the story is not over yet. We send an application to the agency. The project was almost closed, and the HackerOne, we spoke to them about it. So we sent an application to be registered on CVE, and so we see how quickly the BDU did this. So, and of course, Nikita did this whole thing. We pin it. and it's still silent. It still didn't get any identifiers. But we are not really highlighting it, but the vulnerability that we had in earlier versions that was underpatched, so to speak, we looked at the GitHub and globally it was the same story until they had an identifier, nobody did anything. But what they did or they didn't do, nobody knew. With our story, we try to do our experiment and we try to figure out how this identifier BDU, how it affects the speed of accepting the patch. So we still have to do that. The story is almost over, but it's not. So what's about POC? Nikita, tell us. I tried to find all the projects that use users' YAML files. That's a common format in the community.
Файлы конфигурации Kubernetes и все.
Yeah, this is the configuration files of Kubernetes and everything that relates to it. We thought about putting it on the cloud. Hopefully for cloud providers, it didn't happen. And the original reason for that is that the library that uses it in cubes, before taking YAML, they convert it. And then they work with this and they map the structure. I managed to put it in plugin list. So in our presentation, you can see that. So controlling cubes, we do that, but it's not as critical. And I don't think that any developer of Helm plugins, they'd use this supernatural file. So you can see how it looks. Actually, it's a story from HackerOne. This is what you shared with the guys and what turned into information letter. So what it tells us, let me put it briefly, I'll try to summarize it. Using fuzzing, and incidentally, it wasn't our goal, but logically we could have implied it, that in one of the most popular libraries working with YAML, there's a problem that makes it crash. It may crash things. You send some YAML in it properly prepared, and the whole thing crashes. And of course, this is critical for all the cloud services and many other things, but in life, actually it can be quite helpful as well. So when we started, we said about a few things about Megagraph, but back then we are not like a big company to do Megagraphs for all program languages, and for Go language we don't have more than 1 million packages, and we didn't fill our graphs yet, but there is an open alternatives to this and that you can refer to, and this alternative is deps.dev. This is a portal system and the database that Google has. This is the official logo that shows you how tired they are dealing with this graph. And this is where they store the list of packages. And you can see the dump and dump, the packages that use a particular package. And they have the story about directiveness and transitives. And so we also checked the story with the Java. So, and this one actually lies about Java. So with the dependencies, they kind of screwed up. But with Gore, it's right, and we trust the result that you see on the screen, and it's at 1.3 million packages. in the ecosystem. And now you can see from the YAML that on the April 5th, so we had this the support of this package. They close it. This package, it doesn't have maintainers. It's not supported anymore. Nothing is going to happen to it since April. It's in directive. It stands there for 250,000 packages depend on it transiently through a library. So it's a lot actually. So what's with fork? With fork, it's the same story. It's a fresh fork. 4,000 packages use it in the directives. And we can say that they are the most responsible users or people from Kube ecosystem. And so they're actively developing it, and they know that they use to use the fresh one. So you can see it through the links that provided there. So, and what about the ecosystem? So you could see that the most popular fork, and what fork you recommend to use, and people are still asking the question. So what is the hook of the ecosystem? The 1.3 million packages, so we have about 300,000 packages for directly or indirectly use Go YAML. Original or the closed one or fork, but forks, they have problem as well. So if cubes don't react and they tell us prove it, then others simply don't care. And here I would like to get back to Nikita's successes. It's first BDU for him. Just give him a hand, and it's a pretty beautiful BDU. And it's beautiful, it was found in a beautiful way. Oftentimes maintainers, they're trying to kind of saying that it's not that, so you're using your fuzzing, you found this with your automated systems, and you had to give us 1,000 proofs. Well, actually, dialogue was quite constructive. They didn't issue a secured version, but we did everything as it should be. But what we have as a result in BDU, we have a registered vulnerability that affects 23.4 packages of the Go ecosystem. Every fourth or fifth vulnerability is affected by this thing. So what are conclusions? What are the conclusions? So what we've seen here in the process, of our work and the development of our code scoring, what can be the factor of the version that we are going to have? So what can help you if you're going to open something to reporting to the authors? You shouldn't say that your fuzzer kind of crashed. So open reports of Nikita, and it's really great to see. So please monitor them. So you need to stand for your interests. So prepare your POCs, show, tell, get the identifier in the feeds. Show that as soon as you have the ID, the authors, they move faster, and it's true. So engaging those who care, so your colleagues, some other people maybe, and media announcements. So please, tell about it more and more. So here we're talking about it, but we are following all the guidelines. And here there is a table with information how in different ecosystem with what speed you fix it. And this table from other years, after the problem is detected, and the fix comes within 36 days. Fix, yes, it's coming out, but it's not put in the release. Maybe it's a separate challenge to put it in release. So, and they not to me that it's this.
Этап, потому что для меня это была,
Because for me, It was a typical problem that I see hundreds of, and before Lyosha has shown me that very big part of packages is being cut by us. I would make a report, forget about it, and would move on. That's truth. About catching the packages, we have to conduct additional work, but because this is a story about YAML users, everybody uses YAML, so the level of achievement of this problem is pretty high. So we have to follow this up, but our megagraph or depth.dev can be used as a tool for searching these targets and analysis. Of course, we went through the certification and we found the certification thanks to Stack. That's how it updates the BDU. It's a joke, but nevertheless, the question is, we could go and go YAML. Could be used for phasing. Let's move on. Another observation number 2. We have a suspicion that nobody else looks into BDU except for us. And this is a hate in the bag or not, but just an observation to everybody present here, because we do see that out of the existing tools for the open source analysis, we were the only ones who caught this vulnerability. It was difficult not to catch it, but nobody have added to their database, even though it's a working one. That's why we see there's not a lot of news about it, but we'll see what's going to happen when it's going to reach, and we'll get its identifier or something else. Maybe Japanese works, maybe something else. We'll see. What else I would like to tell you, in addition to that, in the completion, in the end of my presentation, please use practices of safe development directly or indirectly that will lead you to the good quality product. And it's clear. There are statistical analysis practices and dynamic analysis and phasing with those stars and composition analysis. So our presentation was kind of speaking good about good, but we have to speak about good, safe development, and you can read a lot about it, and you can learn a lot of new terms and additional practices, and you can use them and get some useful results from the safety of the software and improve your skills as well. Thank you very much for your attention. We're happy to share this information with you. Do you have any questions? We're told that we should give you one book. Yeah, guys. Do you have any questions? Yeah, here's the mic. Hello, I have 2 questions. Question number 1, how often maintainers say, no, we are not supporting bug, or we don't want to support it, don't want to confirm after the proof is provided to them? And the second question, which moments of composition analysis take into consideration database of PDU stack? Thank you. Well, I'll give you the answer for the first one, and maybe you will add some color to this. Well, about pinning, Nikita has the full collection of it, and the answer that again you take your phaser and again, and people write like that to us. Oh, you have assembled a lot of tools, you're breaking us, you understand nothing, and that's what they're trying to use before you poke them with something or scalability of the problem. Yes, I would like to add to this that it's not always availability of the POC and influence the maintainer. You either need to pay money or patch it inside, and creating forks for that, it's very seldom story about composition analysis and BDU stack. Yeah, I just wanted to add that about self-patch, we have a domestic OS, which has been creating their own patch in repository. They put it in CVE and BDU information, but if the developer of the package denies to remove it, then they have their own fork of this package with the patch. Well, in our case, we close the entrance into the function on our side, so we don't have to do the fork. Yes, we do have packages like that, that we hold without authors. Question number 2 about BDU support. We have open festival. It's not a commercial one. Yes, we do support, but I don't want to speak about everybody else. But somebody said that they supported, but we didn't see the results of this support in the fields. And we were more expecting that this story can fly somewhere else, because it's not about the composite analysis. This is a story about VM as well. Indirectly, but in this direction as well. Yeah. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any more questions? Hello, everybody. It's not even a question, but a comment about HackerOne. Perhaps I will explain the situation to you, because I do have an experience, but right now, small talk. Half a presentation, not about composite analysis, about code scoring. Yeah, this is our first presentation. Thank you very much. Respect. About HackerOne, the situation is following. I don't remember exactly by memory, but while I've been Googling during the presentation, I didn't have enough time. They say, okay, let's do the POC, everything else, but on the HackerOne, there's a program called Internet Bug Bounty, something like that. And the main idea of this is that there are money contributors, different companies, American companies, and not only those. They give the budget to the HackerOne, and this budget for the bug that you report there is distributed 80 by 20 or 70 by 30, part to the reporter and part for the development of the community. Possibly they hate the situation when all the necessary documents and proof has to be provided so that money would go in the proper direction. Well, this is the information for the food for thought. Yeah, it's a good knowledge. We've been doing something wrong. We need to earn some money. Yeah, we'll open some thoughts. We didn't have an objective to earn money on this. There was information, there was a goal to convey to the community about the problem, and there were no other way except for HackerOne. Undoubtedly, that's true. But that's why I'm saying why in a specific case. Well, you have a lot of examples, and honestly speaking, from my side, I can confirm them. And there are cases when the same, Pfizer's again, open source all the way to the situation. Well, if this is this, okay, let's take the bug and put it under the carpet. It happens, but there are good impressions when mature teams like yours. So thank you very much. If you will bring phasing test, we'll be only happy. They delivered, oh, wonderful. We have found 10 more. And then they do it with CVEs. And it's from project to project. Thank you. Thank you. More questions? Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a series of questions. You've been mentioning what stimulates contributors and maintainers to install patches. And honestly speaking, as a contributor in the open source, I can tell you there was one point missing, complete merge request, because you said that you made a self-patch, and a question, why it was not sent upstream? Because I thought, well, in our part of the product, we fixed it. We closed the entrance. We have isolated the function which calls it. We didn't do the patch in the library. I understand. I didn't understand this point. Then I have another question to phasing methodologies, because this is also very interesting. For example, we have a library, and there's n points of entry, all the functions. The question, how do you select them? What should be done with binaries? Which, relatively speaking, with OB, C++, it's a very complicated question. And another interesting thing that I would like to find out, how did you show statistics? What is your coverage? It's interesting, how did you process a situation with a dead code, which is available, but it will never be called because there is no control flow to it? The first question about how and which function should be selected for the execution. This is the exact situation when the solution is transferred to phasers, and it has a well-known list, and they themselves, they can simply select any function and send the set of variables. We don't have that code. I'll tell you immediately. We're following this because we're code scoring and not just anybody else. The second question was about how can we What do you do with some compiled languages? For example, Go is a very rich, it has a rich tool set, it can bring everything on the surface and understand you how to phase it. But what do you do with C++? I've looked at the site, and what do you do with the pluses? Have you conducted phasing for the plus? If yes, then do you take fuzzy package, or how do you use it for building the graph? So I have a lot of questions. It's for a separate discussion. Yeah, we can discuss it separately. But I will give you the answer about the dead code. Go does have a similar utility called dead code, which during the assembly of the project will show you which functions were dead. And on a final graph, you can filter those, your report by coverage, and throw away all those functions which are dead in the end application. Okay. What about other languages? They all have their own peculiarities. In a plus world, C++, this information is not provided. And if it is provided, then it is very difficult to combine it. So I do follow this situation because it's a pain point. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And once again, I would like to go back and complete this series with a joke. Why didn't we patch it ourselves? Because the patch was written, the patch was created very fast. We created it and it has appeared, and that's okay. So those methods of influence, of course, we're speaking about the influence when you want additionally influence. Of course, we have to bring patches, and we should do that. Please subscribe to Nikita in GitHub, and you will see everything out there. About all these series of questions, there was a joke, and I would like to change it a little bit. Do you have time for a joke? Well, we have big stockpile of time, but it's a joke. It's about bikers, usually, but about phasing, it can also be used. So, two phasing guys went to the prison, they spent 10 years, then they spoke 15 minutes about phasing after the prison, and then they went their ways. So you can ask questions.
Коллеги, может, еще какие-то вопросы?
Так,
Да, вот
Dear colleagues, any more questions? Yeah, left microphone. Yeah, they were the first ones. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting. So it happens that 23% of Go ecosystem is from vulnerabilities and have no identifiers. Not many people know it, and it can work. What have you tried to evaluate, and do you do research how many other vulnerabilities like that are available? Well, there's information in GitHub in comments, but nobody knows about it because there's no identifier and nobody finds these tools, etc. This is a wonderful question. We are working on these, but not sufficiently deep. How can I comment it? The problem is that we're searching for vulnerabilities in GitHub, the stories when somebody hung up something, but the problem is that vulnerability and safety is a part of the quality. Why should I read lectures about it? And to see the difference, some message about a problem from the message about vulnerability, it's very difficult, not easy. And even from the point of view of machine learning, which can be trained by classifiers which will search for such tickets. So right now, it's difficult to give a proper evaluation. We do see cases like that. They do happen, but fortunately, what is the toughest situation? They surface very fast. But we do have a lot of problems like that on reps, and that's true. Thank you. There was another question? Yeah, the final one. Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to be more specific about YAML. And there was no composition on this analysis. Why the set of byte brings to the crack? Of course, I would like to show the slide. It's not only this YAML can be used to put it down. It's just beautiful picture and example, but it's working one. Well, the idea is that the type transformation didn't work. And this set of input data has triggered it. Thank you. And under the image, we had a signature. If you drop it, then you drop it. Yeah, please. Thank you very much for your presentation. You're great. It was interesting, wonderful. I have a question. maybe a little bit outside. You had the last slide when you recommend to use a new Ghost, and in the context of this Ghost, where there's the beginning of Dust and where is the beginning of phasing and how they interrelate, where's the end of Dust, where's the beginning of phasing, how your team understands these two practices. It's a very scientific, popular question. It's go to Kulibin. How your team does that? Will you say it or not? Well, the thing is that it happened that we are apologists of phasing. We don't have super web, which has to be phased. Yes, we do have a lot of different endpoints, but actually we are having fun with backend. Front end is not under the attack surface, as we have learned recently. I don't see big difference between Dust and phasing from the point of view that I'm grouping testing by statics and dynamics, and other dynamics we have functional testing, unit testing, phasing testing, but generally speaking, there are no differences for me. These are different approaches, different expectations, and unit tests. We expect that it's going to be doing under a minute. Phasing, we can wait for a week. Load testing, we can wait for months. It's different from time to time. Different people have different numbers, but there's no straight line, personally, for me. And this Ghost also says that there should be regulation for phasing, and there is a sign that this document has to be produced. When you will develop something like that, and when you develop something like that, what are you looking at? We're not developing. We still are in the process of certification, and we don't need to certify processes. We're not out of those companies. We are classical IT, which doesn't try to certify processes, but we have not we're not mature enough. We're only 50 people, but not yet. Okay, let other guys will get first place, second place, all the certificates. Earlier or later, we're going to have it. As I see, we still do have time. So I do know from some information that in composite analysis, there will be a need for regulations. And we do have some ideas in this part. And this is a story that we as a composite analysis, why not? These regulations are going to be disclosed. It's not going to work for everybody because everybody have their own processes, but we're going to share with everybody. In case with phasing, I'm confident that something will come out and it's going to be down to the ground, as practical as it can be, because we're an engineering company. It's going to be down to the ground and it's going to be useful to some people, but we don't have these dozens of phasers in our company who could do this regulation complete and useful for the community, because phasing is a long and heavy story and very complicated story. Nikita just gave a comment that we have dynamic. You have launched Zap, looked at everything, everything's cool. Somehow, then you start phasing. Looks like it's just a client utility, a binary code that we've been speaking about. It's very small, and yes, of course, there's a lot of different things, but yes, it was screaming for a week. It did work for a week, but it was wonderful that nothing have been shut down globally, and stat analysis, when it's heavy, it can drop in the process. And from the point of view of phasing, we are not, yes, we're experienced technically, but not procedurally, because phasing it's very long, it can drop, who's responsible, who should catch what, and what should be relaunched, and where should we put the results. All the results right now are installed in Nikita. He's the result collector. Thank you. Thank you. More questions? Well, now it's the time to select a winner. We should discuss. Okay, guys, let's make it in a different way. We will define the winner a little bit later, because everybody who's been asking questions, please don't leave, and then please approach us and we'll discuss it with you. No, I think we'll say, yeah, we've selected, so that we don't hold everybody. The young person with series of questions about phasing, about contributing. So that's the guy. The first and the third one. The one where I've been telling the joke with the... Thank you very much. Yeah, support you. I was really glad to hear your presentation. It was a great one. Please don't go. Next presentation is going to be what is an open source. Thank you.